Hello, I'm Taron Egerton, and this is how I became Elton John. The first time I remember being aware of him, I was very young, and it would have been when The Lion King came out. And I, like most people of my generation, was quite enchanted by that film. And he kind of cropped up quite a lot during my time growing up, my falling in love with music. When I auditioned for drama school when I was 17 and 18, because I didn't get in the first year, I sang Your Song as my performance piece. So he's sort of always been there. And I've always been fascinated by Elton. You know, he's someone who's notoriously a huge personality and notoriously kind of can be tricky. And I always found that very appealing. The first time I met him was on KINGSMAN, and we were shooting, there's a scene at the end of the movie where I get married, and he was sort of up at the piano or the organ, you know, in the kind of pulpit bit. As you can tell, I'm not particularly familiar with churches, but he kind of asked me to go up and say hello to him, and he said, you know, if I was 5 years younger, it'd be me you were getting married to now, which made me blush, actually. And it was the first of, I would imagine, somewhere in the region of 500 or 600 times Elton has now made me blush, because he enjoys that. The genesis of Rocketman probably happened somewhere around that time, for whatever reason. The film in its iteration before that had a different actor attached, and I think he'd been very busy and just too much time had elapsed. And Matthew Vaughn sort of joined forces with Elton and David and their two production companies to try and set it up. And Matthew asked me one day on KINGSMAN, how do you feel about playing Elton John? And I knew that I wanted to do something that would utilise my singing, because I sing a bit. And he's also just a fascinating character, you know, he's one of the most extraordinary, most creative people that's ever lived, I think. So I was very, very excited to be asked. So I said, yeah, let's do it. So basically, Matthew set up this day at Abbey Road where they put me in front of a piano, and I sang two songs. I sang Your Song and I sang Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me. And they recorded me doing it, and I was wearing an old vintage Elton tee that David Furnish found in the archive. So that was as near as I got to an audition, which I suppose it was in a way. I didn't know it was, I thought I already had it. Becoming him was all about just sort of immersing myself in his world, really. I went and spent some time at his house with him. I read his diaries. I tended to sort of glean what I could glean from him, really, as that was the most reliable information. And then a lot of time spent in studio, working on his songs with Giles Martin and finding different interpretations of them. Some we do more faithfully, because we have songs in the film that we'll use as sort of musical theatre moments where the songs move the plot forward or reveal something about how a character's feeling. But also we use songs as part of the soundtrack, so my kind of disembodied voice will just chime up at certain moments, which is quite fun too. At the start of the process with Rocketman, Elton was very keen that I find a grit and a gravel to my voice and something that felt more authentically rock and roll. And he also wanted me to find my own take on the songs and not to try and emulate him too much, which was hard at first because I feel like there's a lot of pressure to emulate. I'm glad we didn't. I like to sing ballads and I find that quite comfortable, but finding a rockier part of my voice was quite a challenge. And songs like Saturday Night's Alright for Fighting and Pinball Wizard and Benny and the Jets, and getting that grit into your voice and making it sound like rock and roll and not like musical theatre. There are moments, I think, when I evoke a sense of him, but because I do all the singing, it inevitably sounds more like me than it does Elton. But immersing myself in the world of his music was the thing that made me feel most close to him. Like a lot of people, you know, Elton's music, or I should say Elton and Bernie's music, to be more accurate, makes me feel stuff. So, you know, when you are playing someone and you're using their music as part of the storytelling, it feels more acutely emotional, I would say. I spent about 3 months learning the piano, and I'm still not very good, because it turns out it takes longer than 3 months. Who'd have thought it? But what we did achieve was we would work on the songs and focus largely on rhythm and placing of your hands along the keys, so that unless it's a very unforgiving angle, you're more able to invest in the idea that it's me playing. I won't pretend I do all the playing in the film because that would be silly. Most of it's done by an incredible pianist named Dave Hartley. But I think I fake it quite well, I hope. I sang a song with Elton at their Oscar viewing party for the EJAF Foundation, and it was an incredible experience. It was very, very daunting and very scary, but also incredible, and it was quite an emotional thing, and he played the song very, very beautifully, and it's just an experience I'll remember forever and ever and ever, and I felt very supported by him and very looked after by him. It was a lovely thing.